wonder murmur where whispers weave the heart.
Hello, little hearts. A new whisper begins. In a quiet house on a winding street lived a boy named David. David was a force of nature, a whirlwind of boundless energy and wild ideas. He had a heart full of mischief and a mind that loved to explore every corner of his world, whether it was the inside of a closet or the top of a bookshelf. His days were a blur of adventures, and his mother's voice was the song of his life. "No, David," she would say, and the word would echo through the house. David, his face a mask of determined concentration, would stand on a chair, reaching for the forbidden cookie jar. The voice would come again, "No, David, don't you dare!" And he would drop back to the floor, his shoulders slumping in playful defeat. His life was filled with these glorious battles of will. He would grab a crayon and, with a wild grin, draw a magnificent spidery scribble on the living room wall. "No, David, we don't draw on the walls." He'd make a pillow mountain on his bed, a snow-white Everest that reached the ceiling. "No, David, go to your room." He loved the thrill of the chase, the joy of a good mess. When he made his food into a castle on his plate, his mother would sigh and say, "Don't play with your food, David." But he knew, deep down, that she was just as amused as he was. His greatest adventures, however, were always before bedtime. When the moon rose, a wild, untamed energy would fill his little body. He would run and jump, a blur of motion through the house. "Settle down," his mother would call. "No more TV." But he couldn't help it. His body was a drum, and the night was the beat. One evening, after a particularly wild game of pretend, David ran into his room. He had been playing with his toys and had left them scattered all over the floor. A beautiful, colorful mess of blocks, cars, and stuffed animals. His mother's voice, now a bit weary, came from the hallway. "Put your toys away, David." But his imagination was a roaring river, and he couldn't stop it. He grabbed his favorite dinosaur and made it roar, and his mother's voice came again, this time with a note of finality. "I said, 'No, David.'" The words were a thunderclap. David's face crumpled. He was sent to his room. He sat on his bed, the door closed, and the silence was a heavy blanket over him. The toys on the floor, once so fun, now seemed to mock him. His heart, which had been so full of joy, now ached with a deep loneliness. He sat for a long time, the silence a punishment all its own. Then the door opened softly. His mother was standing there, her face tired, but her eyes filled with a love so deep it seemed to glow in the dim light. She didn't scold him. She didn't remind him of his mess. She just sat on the bed beside him and pulled him into a hug. "Come here, David," she whispered. David buried his face in her shirt, the tears he had been holding back finally spilling over. He sobbed, not because he was in trouble, but because he knew he had made her sad. She held him tightly, stroking his hair, and whispered the most important words he would ever hear. "Yes, David," she said softly. "I love you." And in that moment, David understood that a mother's love was the most powerful thing in the world. It was a love that could see past the scribbled walls and the messy rooms. It was a love that was always there, no matter what. As David grew a little older, his mischief didn't go away. Instead, it became more complicated. He no longer simply made a mess. He would get into trouble. And when he did, a new set of words would follow. "I didn't do it," he would say, his hands held up in a sign of innocence. One day, he was playing with his big brother, and he accidentally broke a favorite toy. His brother was furious. David, with a sinking feeling in his chest, looked at his mother. "It's not my fault," he said. "My brother did it." He was a master of deflection, a ninja of excuses. His mother, a wise woman, would not accept it. When David found himself in a new mess, he would reach for a new excuse. He'd pull the cat's tail, and when the cat hissed, he'd say, "It slipped." He'd leave a terrible mess on the floor, and when his mother asked, he'd simply say, "It was an accident." But his excuses never seemed to work. Not really. They felt like thin blankets, too small to cover the truth. He was getting into trouble more often, and a dark cloud seemed to follow him. The climax came on a quiet afternoon. David was in the kitchen, and a magnificent cake sat on the counter, frosted with white sugar and filled with a creamy yellow filling. The cake looked so beautiful, so tempting. His stomach growled. He knew he shouldn't touch it. His mother had told him 100 times to leave things alone. But the temptation was too great. He took a tiny taste, then a bigger taste. Then, before he knew it, half the cake was gone, and his face was covered in a sticky, sweet mess. His mother walked in. Her eyes, which were usually so warm, were filled with a look of disappointment. "David," she said. He scrambled to come up with an essay, but his mind was blank. He looked at the half-eaten cake, then at the guilt in his mother's eyes. He had nothing. I was hungry," he tried, but it sounded hollow, even to him. His mother just looked at him, her silence a more powerful punishment than any words. David's heart ached with the truth. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. He had known what he was doing, and he had done it anyway. He felt a deep sense of shame. Finally, a single clear thought broke through his fear and guilt. He had to be honest. He had to face his mistake. He took a deep breath. "It wasn't me," he started to say, but the words felt wrong. He swallowed them. He looked his mother in the eye. "Yes," he said, his voice small but clear. "It was me. I'm sorry." The words were a key, unlocking the guilt that had been a heavy weight in his heart. His mother's face, which had been so disappointed, now softened and aired. She knelt down and wiped the frosting from his face. "I love you, Mom," David said, and he meant it. He loved her for not getting angry, for just waiting for him to tell the truth. He had learned his lesson. It was okay to make a mistake. It was okay to get into trouble. But the most important thing, the most powerful thing you could do, was to be accountable for what you had done. To look someone in the eye and say, "I'm sorry." And in that simple act, a messy, wild boy became a little wiser.
Wonder murmur, the story departs, yet the whisper imparts.